I stood at the altar in my wedding dress, staring down an aisle that was suddenly empty. No mother fixing my veil. No sister smiling back at me. No brother pretending everything was fine. No family at all. My hands were shaking when my phone buzzed. One message. From my sister. We're done with you. Don't try to follow us. Stick with me, because that was only the beginning of how my wedding day turned into the worst day of my life. My name is Lena Whitaker. I was 28, quiet, and always the one who tried to keep everyone happy. Growing up, I learned early that staying silent was easier than arguing. If my family fought, I was the one who apologized, even when I did nothing wrong. If something went missing, I was the one who helped replace it. Being the easy child became my role. This wedding was supposed to be different. Just one day that belonged to me. But even that morning, something felt off. My mom, Carol, barely spoke to me while I got ready. She didn't help with my dress. She didn't cry. My sister Brielle avoided my eyes like she was ashamed or angry. I couldn't tell which. My brother Evan kept stepping outside, checking his phone, acting nervous. Before the ceremony, I waited in the bridal room. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. No one came back for me. No mom. No sister. No bridesmaid from my family. A staff member finally asked if I was ready to walk. I walked down the aisle alone. I could feel the eyes on me. The whispers. My face burned with embarrassment. When I reached the front, my fiancé Marcus leaned in and whispered, "Where's your family?" I opened my mouth to answer, but my phone vibrated again. That message from Brielle flashed in my mind. My chest tightened. My heart felt like it was dropping through the floor. Then the church doors slammed open. The sound echoed so loud that everyone turned at once. I looked over my shoulder and froze. Standing there was my father, Thomas Whitaker. I hadn't seen him in years. Behind him were 2 police officers. The room went silent. In that moment, I knew this wasn't just abandonment. This was something planned, something ugly. And my wedding was no longer about love. It was about a betrayal I didn't see coming. The police didn't rush in shouting. That somehow made it worse. They walked slowly up the aisle, calm and serious, like this was routine. One of them spoke to the officiant in a low voice. The music stopped. The guests fell quiet. Someone near the back gasped. The officer turned to me and said there was a serious family matter that needed to be addressed before the ceremony could continue. I remember gripping my bouquet so hard my fingers hurt. I asked what was going on. No one answered me right away. My father stood there, stiff and unreadable, not even looking at me like a daughter. Just like a problem. Then the words finally came out. I was being accused of stealing money. They said it was from a family trust my grandmother had set up before she died. A trust meant to help her grandchildren start their lives. The officer explained that my family claimed I had taken more than my share. That I had moved money without permission. That there were records showing my name. I felt dizzy. I hadn't touched that money. I barely even understood how the trust worked. My grandmother handled everything when she was alive. After she passed, my mom and siblings took over. I was never included in those talks. I tried to explain that. I told them there had to be a mistake. I looked at Marcus, expecting him to defend me, to say he knew me better than this. But he didn't. His face had changed. Not angry, not protective, just uncertain, like he was seeing a stranger standing in front of him. "Lena," he said quietly, Did you ever move money without telling anyone?" That question hurt more than the accusation. I shook my head again and again. I said no. I said I would never do that. I said I didn't even have access. My voice sounded small in the huge church. Every eye was on me. I could feel the judgment pressing down. That's when it hit me. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't a misunderstanding. They chose today on purpose. My wedding. A room full of people. The one moment I was supposed to feel safe and loved. They waited until I was dressed in white, standing in front of everyone I cared about, before tearing me apart. My family didn't just leave me alone at the altar. They handed me over to the police and watched my life fall apart. And for the first time, I understood something clearly. I wasn't just abandoned. I was set up. After the guests were asked to leave the church, everything felt hollow and quiet. I was taken to a small side room with my father and the officers. My wedding dress felt heavy now, like it didn't belong to me anymore. My father finally spoke. His voice was flat, almost careful. He said he didn't come back into my life by choice. He came because someone contacted him anonymously. They told him there was financial fraud happening in the family trust. They said his name was still connected to it, and if he ignored it, he could be pulled into something serious. He admitted that at first, he didn't believe it. He said it didn't sound like me. That should have comforted me, but it didn't. The fact that he still showed up with police told me everything. He said the evidence looked real. Bank records, transfer dates, documents with my name on them. He said my signature was on the paperwork. I felt my stomach drop. I asked to see the documents. One of the officers showed me copies. My name was there. My handwriting, or something close enough that it made my chest tighten. But I knew instantly it wasn't mine. The loops were wrong. The pressure was off. It looked practiced, not natural. That's when the truth started to sink in. Someone didn't just accuse me. They studied me. They copied me. They planned this carefully. They waited until my father would take it seriously. Until the timing would hurt the most. I looked at my dad and asked who contacted him. He shook his head. No name. Just messages. Enough detail to scare him. Enough proof to make him act. The officers said they needed time. They couldn't arrest anyone without a full review. They would investigate the trust, the records, and the signatures. Until then, nothing would happen. Nothing, except the damage already done. Word spreads fast in a small room full of guests who just watched a bride accused of theft. People saw the police. They saw my father walk in. They didn't hear explanations. They didn't wait for truth. My phone started buzzing with messages I couldn't bring myself to open. I realized something painful in that moment. Even if I was cleared later, this stain wouldn't fully disappear. Doubt had already settled into the story of who I was. My father stood up to leave, saying he hoped everything would work out. I sat there alone, understanding how deep this betrayal really was. This wasn't chaos. It was calculated. While the investigation slowly moved forward, pieces of my past started to make sense. Conversations I once ignored came back to me, clearer now, sharper. It was like replaying old scenes and finally understanding what they meant. I remembered sitting at the kitchen table years ago, hearing my mom and siblings talk in low voices about paperwork and accounts. When I asked what they were discussing, my mom would smile and say, "Nothing you need to worry about, Lena." At the time, I thought she was protecting me. Now I knew she was keeping me out. I thought about my grandmother. She was the only one who ever asked my opinion. The only one who noticed how often I gave things up to keep peace. When I stayed late to help her organize old bills, she once said, "You're the responsible one. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Back then, I didn't understand why she said it so seriously. Later, after she passed, I learned bits and pieces through tense family dinners. Brielle once snapped, "Of course Grandma trusted you. You were always her favorite." She laughed after saying it, like it was a joke. But her eyes weren't joking. I remembered my mom correcting her quickly, saying everything was split fairly. No one looked at me when she said it. Now I understood the truth. My grandmother had left me a larger share of the trust. Not because she loved me more, but because she knew I would never ask for help. She wanted me to have a safety net. That quiet decision planted years of anger. Brielle and my mom carried that resentment silently. They acted normal. They smiled. But they watched every move I made. Every time I paid my own way. Every time I refused help. It didn't matter. In their minds, I had already taken something that belonged to them. Evan was the one who knew numbers. He handled spreadsheets easily. I remembered him saying once, half joking, "I could make these accounts say whatever I want." We all laughed. I didn't think twice. Now I knew he meant it. They adjusted records, shifted amounts, made it look like money moved where it shouldn't. And when they needed someone to blame, they chose me. Because I was quiet. Because I hated conflict. Because I would freeze instead of fight. They believed I would stay silent to protect the family name, even if it destroyed me. Sitting alone one night, that realization hurt more than the accusation itself. They didn't misjudge me. They counted on me. After everything fell apart, Marcus asked if we could talk somewhere quiet. We sat in a small room behind the church, still decorated with flowers meant for celebration. I was still in my dress. My makeup was smudged, my hands cold. He didn't look at me at first. He said the accusation scared him. He said he never imagined starting a marriage with police involved. He kept repeating that he needed to think clearly and do the right thing. I told him I understood being scared. I told him I was scared too. I said I didn't steal anything. I said my family set me up. I needed him to believe me. He finally looked at me then, but his eyes were full of doubt. He said he wasn't saying I was guilty, just that things looked bad. that it would be smart to pause everything until it was cleared up. He said postponing didn't mean canceling, that it was only temporary. But the word postpone felt like a door quietly closing. I asked him if he trusted me. He hesitated. That pause answered everything. Outside the room, I could hear people talking, chairs being moved, staff whispering. Someone was already taking down decorations. The reception hall was being emptied before it ever started. Marcus stood up and said he would tell everyone the wedding was canceled for now. He said it was for the best. I sat there alone, listening as my marriage ended before it began. When I finally walked out, people avoided my eyes. Some looked at me with pity, others with suspicion. No one asked how I was. No one asked what really happened. In a room full of people, I had never felt so alone. The officiant told me he was sorry. The coordinator asked about the cake. Practical questions like nothing life-changing had just happened. The word spread quickly. The wedding was off. The bride was involved in something serious. No one said my name, but I could feel it attached to every whisper. Losing my family hurt, but losing Marcus hurt deeper. Family betrayal felt familiar. I had lived with it in quiet ways my whole life. But this was the man who promised to stand with me. The one person I thought would stay when things got hard. He chose distance instead. That night, I folded my wedding dress by myself and placed it back in its box. There was no anger in me yet, just a heavy, aching sadness. I realized something as I closed the lid. I had lost my husband before the reception, and nothing had ever hurt more than that. The church was almost empty when my father found me again. The lights were dimmed. Chairs were stacked. It didn't look like a place where a wedding had just been destroyed. It looked like nothing had ever happened at all. We sat on opposite sides of a long table. For a while, neither of us spoke. I could hear my own breathing. I kept my hands folded in my lap, so he wouldn't see them shaking. Finally, he said my name. Not sharp, not angry, just tired. He told me he knew he failed me growing up. He said leaving was easier than staying and facing problems. He said he convinced himself I was strong enough to handle things on my own. Hearing that made something twist inside me. I had been strong because I had no choice. He said that when he saw me standing there with police around me, something broke in him. He realized how much of my life he had missed. How alone I must have felt. Then he said something I didn't expect. He said he believed me. He promised he would help me uncover the truth. Not as a legal duty, but as my father. He said he would talk to lawyers. He would push for full records. He would not let this be brushed away. For the first time that day, I felt a small sense of ground beneath my feet. But something else had changed too. As he spoke, I thought about all the times I had protected my family. I had stayed quiet to keep peace. I had ignored hurtful words. I had blamed myself when things went wrong. I realized that silence had never saved me. It only made me an easy target. I looked at my father and told him I would help too. But I wouldn't beg. I wouldn't explain myself to people who already decided I was guilty. I wouldn't rush to clear my name publicly just to make others comfortable. I would let the truth speak for itself. This wasn't about revenge in the way people imagine it. I didn't want to yell or expose anyone in public. I didn't want to ruin lives for the sake of it. I wanted fairness. I wanted clarity. I wanted my name back. As we stood to leave, I felt calmer than I had all day. The pain was still there, but it no longer controlled me. I walked out of the church knowing one thing for sure. I was done protecting people who were willing to destroy me. And that quiet decision was where everything truly began. The work started quietly. No confrontations. No angry calls. Just long hours of looking at numbers, dates, and records that had once meant nothing to me. My father brought in a financial expert who knew how to read between the lines. I sat beside them, listening, learning. At first, the records looked confusing on purpose. Money moved in small amounts, spread out over time. Nothing that screamed theft right away. But when everything was placed in order, patterns began to show. Transfers always happened late at night. Mostly on weekdays. Always after family meetings I was never invited to. My name was attached to them, but the access points weren't mine. Brielle's name came up often. Her login appeared right before several transfers. She claimed she never handled finances, but the system told a different story. Her fingerprints were everywhere. Then there was Evan. He was careful, but not careful enough. He adjusted numbers so slowly that it looked natural. Small changes. Quiet corrections. But once you lined them up, it was clear he was redirecting money away from one place and into another. And then there was my mother. That part hurt the most. Carol always said she didn't understand financial paperwork. She laughed it off, saying numbers confused her. But the records showed approvals. Digital authorizations. Her name attached to permissions that allowed transfers to go through. She didn't need to move the money herself. She just needed to allow it. Every excuse she had ever given replayed in my head. Every time she told me, "I don't know anything about that," or "Your brother handles it." It was all an act. I stayed silent. I didn't call them. I didn't ask questions. I let them believe their plan had worked. I let them think I was still ashamed, still frozen, still the same quiet girl who wouldn't push back. They grew comfortable. Careless. They stopped checking their stories. They forgot details. They contradicted each other in messages and statements. I collected everything. Screenshots. Logs. Timelines. I kept it organized, neat, and undeniable. Each piece felt heavy, not with anger, but with truth. There was no satisfaction in this part. No thrill. Just focus. I thought about my grandmother. About why she trusted me. About how she wanted me protected, not used. As the picture became clear, I understood something important. This wasn't a mistake or a misunderstanding. It was a scheme built on years of knowing exactly who I was. And for the first time, I was using that same quiet nature against them. I didn't post statements. I didn't call relatives. I didn't try to explain myself to anyone who already decided what kind of person I was. I stayed quiet and let the investigation move forward on its own. That silence made my family confident. They thought I was broken. They thought I was too embarrassed to speak up. They assumed I would eventually beg them to fix this quietly, the way I always had before. So they stopped being careful. Brielle told one version of the story to the police and a different one to extended family. At first, the differences were small. A date here. A reason there. But small cracks spread fast when people are lying. Evan tried to sound helpful. Too helpful. He explained things no one asked about. He corrected officers before questions were finished. He claimed he barely touched the accounts, then later said he managed them fully for years. My mother stayed calm on the surface, but she slipped too. She said she never approved anything. Then she said she approved routine things without understanding them. Then she said she trusted Evan completely. Each answer led to another question. The police noticed. Their tone changed. They stopped asking general questions and started asking exact ones. Times. Devices. Locations. They asked why transfers were approved from my mother's account while she claimed she didn't know how to log in. They asked why Brielle's access appeared right before multiple transactions. They asked Evan why files were edited minutes after I supposedly signed them. Each question tightened the room. I watched from the side, saying very little. I didn't interrupt. I didn't argue. I just listened. My family kept talking. They thought they were talking their way out. Instead, they were walking deeper in. The officers began requesting more documents. They asked for personal devices. They compared statements side by side. The relaxed attitude from the beginning was gone. For the first time since my wedding day, I felt the balance shift. It wasn't loud. No one raised their voice. No dramatic moment happened. But I could see it in the way my family avoided each other's eyes. In the way answers became shorter. In the way confidence drained from their faces. They had built this plan believing I would collapse under the weight of shame. They never planned for patience. They never planned for silence. And they never planned for the truth to move at its own steady pace. As the investigation deepened, I realized something quietly powerful. I didn't need to fight them. I just needed to let them keep talking. The trap was already set. All they had to do was walk into it. The day the truth came out, I felt like I was finally breathing after holding my breath for years. The forensic accountant had spent weeks going through every record, every transfer, every document with my name on it. Nothing was rushed, nothing left unchecked. When they presented their findings, the room was silent. Every signature on the suspicious documents had been forged. Dates had been altered to make it look like I acted first. The evidence was clear, undeniable. My heart pounded, not with joy, but with relief and quiet satisfaction. Brielle was the first to crack. She sat across from the officers, trying to keep her composure. At first, she denied everything. She said she didn't know what they were talking about. She tried to blame Evan, then my mother. But when the accountant showed her the timeline, the logs, and the digital trails, her face went pale. She started stammering, repeating contradictions. Finally, she admitted it. She had forged the signatures and made the transfers. Evan didn't wait long. Once Brielle confessed, he turned on Carol. He said she authorized the transfers, even if she pretended not to understand them. He said she knew the rules, she approved them anyway, and she let him and Brielle handle the rest. Carol's expression shifted from anger to fear. For the first time, she seemed like the person I had known behind closed doors. Vulnerable, caught, and without excuses. I sat quietly, watching it all unfold. I didn't need to speak. I didn't need to defend myself. Every word from the accountant, every confession, every slip, cleared my name without me raising my voice. When the officers finally looked at me, they said it plainly. I was formally cleared. No charges. Nothing. Not a single accusation would follow me anymore. The relief was immense. Years of quiet patience, years of enduring betrayal, had led to this moment. Charges were filed, but not against me. Brielle and Evan faced legal consequences, and Carol's involvement would be investigated further. My family's carefully built lies had collapsed piece by piece. I left the room without celebration. No hugs, no laughter, no triumphant smiles. But inside, something heavier than any wedding dress I had worn that year lifted off my shoulders. For the first time in a long time, I could see clearly. I wasn't the girl who quietly absorbed betrayal anymore. I had survived it, exposed it, and emerged stronger. The truth was out, and finally I was free. I walked out of the courthouse feeling lighter than I had in years. My name was cleared. The police, the accountants, the investigators, all of them had confirmed what I already knew. I hadn't done anything wrong. My family had tried to destroy me, but now the truth was finally on my side. Marcus was there, waiting. He approached cautiously, his hands held out like he could make everything right with a simple apology. He said he was sorry, that he should have believed me sooner, that he wanted to make things right between us. I looked at him, really looked, and for the first time I saw him clearly. I saw the doubt, the fear, the hesitation. I realized that even now, he wasn't fully there for me. I didn't need apologies. I didn't need excuses. I didn't need someone who wavered when it mattered most. I nodded politely but didn't speak. I turned away. My wedding wasn't about him anymore. It wasn't about anyone but me. And even then, it had been stolen before it could feel like mine. That day was gone, and I didn't need to pretend otherwise. My family faced consequences that couldn't be avoided. Brielle and Evan had legal charges to answer to. Carol was under investigation. Beyond the law, the gossip, the whispers, and the disappointment followed them too. They had planned to humiliate me, but the tables had turned. The same family that tried to ruin my life now had to live with the consequences of their actions. I didn't celebrate. There were no flowers, no cake, no happy ending party. I didn't call friends to tell them I had won. I didn't post anything online. There was nothing to cheer about because this wasn't about triumph. It was about survival, truth, and finally having control of my life again. I went home, walked through my front door, and felt the quiet freedom settle around me. I didn't need forgiveness. I didn't need to mend bridges. Some doors needed to stay closed, and this was one of them. For the first time, I could breathe without fear, without doubt, without pretending. I could make choices that were mine alone. I could look at my future without anyone else's shadow over it. I closed the door behind me, literally and figuratively, and stepped into my own life. The wedding that had been stolen from me would never define me. The betrayal, the lies, the humiliation, they couldn't touch me anymore. I was free, and that was enough. If you ever feel trapped by family pressure or false accusations, remember, staying calm, gathering evidence, and seeking help from professionals can protect your rights. Trust your instincts, know your legal options, and don't let shame silence you. Knowledge and patience are powerful tools for reclaiming your life.